Okay there, hi, how you doing? I want to talk to you about Cyberpunk 2077 and some of the symbolism that gives such a rich meaning to V's journey and existence in a narrative that's even deeper than you already thought it was once you start looking into it. And if you're new to the game and you haven't even gotten past Act 1 or haven't completed it yet, please stop watching and come back when you've finished the game. I want to briefly focus on two specific things, mountains and cats, and why I think there's an argument as to why V was already dead. It all starts and ends with a sticker that whispers a destination in your ear, but through your eyeballs, I suppose. A subliminal message that everything is predestined and everything will be in its place when all is said and done if you make the right choices, but we'll come back to that.
Let's roll.
I want to just start by talking briefly about ontology. I'm not an expert in the subject matter, but my understanding of it is that it's the philosophical study of being, the branch of philosophy that investigates the nature of existence. Although not overtly the plot MacGuffin, this is one of the main narrative drivers in Cyberpunk 2077, where questions are not only posed about your existence, but that of the digital being. The immature brain graft slowly converting your grey matter to its own DNA in preparation for its own corporeal future. So not only does the game make you consider the self, the spiritual combined with the corporeal, it also makes you question the rights of a digital being, the validity of an AI's claim to a physical vessel, which, if denied, will ultimately claim two entities. It's deep stuff, and in a way it kind of makes me wish that the choices were not really ours at the end, and we might have been railroaded at that point, perversely. You'll understand where I'm coming from, surely. The fact that there was multiple endings let our own personal biases get in way of what might have been considered, from a writer's point of view, the right direction, which probably should have been that RV's body was ultimately Johnny's. That New Dawn fades would be canon in their mind as writers. I think a lot of writers will write a story and have a canon flow for that story, and at the end they might write out alternative endings. I'd love to talk to the writers in CD Projekt or any other company and see if that's actually how they do it, but it would make sense to have an A to B narrative and then give options. And I would be curious if New Dawn fades was that A to B option. Especially as it's the one ending that leaves us open for a sequel without some magical, oh, they found a cure for V between 1 and 2. Although it's V Mark II, you can still return back to your body in the same way that Johnny did. And let's not forget, beyond some specific decisions carried from game to game, there were never any alternate endings that would derail a Witcher game and prevent CD Projekt being able to carry a character through a trilogy of games. But this really was a full stop. And to be honest with you, the amount of views people get on guides like how to get the best ending, or how to get the secret ending, or which is the best ending, makes me wonder what's the point of multiple endings anyway, if so many people want to just get the best ending and not something that's a more authentic experience to their own choices. For me, that's what I want, and I like to see all the different endings, but I don't feel like I have to get the best one. And often my most enjoyable gaming experiences are the ones when I don't second guess my choices, and I make myself live with the consequences, because that's my own authentic journey through that game. Not what some YouTuber or online publication or even guidebook tells me is the best option. So in the case where such a strong narrative message is very central to the story, having multiple endings almost seems like an unnecessary addition. I'm not saying I don't want to see multiple endings in future games, but I'm just saying it's food for thought.
V is dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
So instead, in the form we know it now and is much lauded with its multiple endings, we are faced with a choice. And I believe that most of us failed to pick what is right, instead choosing to take another 6 months. Screw Johnny. This body was ours to begin with. But was it? Was it really? When was this to begin with time exactly? We died, remember? Dex made damn sure of that. When Johnny finally rebooted our body, it was the relic chip activating the host for him. It was Johnny's turn to walk in Sin City, in Gomorrah. The fact that we were still in this shell was a chance occurrence of our own strength of spirit and tenacity or will to exist. We should have been brain dead. In the journey from No-Tell Motel to the landfill, that's more than 4 minutes. Or I think maybe is it 6 minutes before the brain shuts down completely, or begins to shut down completely. Either way, it's a long old trip and they have to carry you out of the hotel room first. And in addition, you also have the time it takes for Takamura to actually find you. Or find Dex and get Dex to take him there. It's definitely the daytime, so the following day, we would have been brain dead. This person that comes back as V cannot be V by any kind of rational sense of modern medical understanding. And yes, I know this is a future setting, but you know, come on. It's akin to a spiritual resurrection. The soul, if there is such a thing, should have left the body by then. The brain died, no memory left, no memory of who you are. I don't know who comes back in the landfill, but it sure as hell isn't V. Again, speaking of the resurrection, people didn't recognize Jesus. Some didn't believe it was him until he showed them his wounds. Quiet! But sorry, just to steer things back into Cyberpunk, in basic terms, the relic was supposed to, like with Saburo and Yorinobu in the devil ending, give our body to Johnny. And failing that, our trip up the mountain was our second chance to make good on that. But no, so many of us, me included, opted to go gallivanting across the continent, across an endless sea with the Aldecaldos, or rocketing up into space to rip off Elon Musk's space casino Sodom, and that's the way it goes. So the V that we create at the start of the game, Jackie's tomb, the V that spends 6 truncated months with Jackie, was already dead after Act 1. What's left is your spirit clinging onto a body that wakes up in the landfill. Although you're returned from the dead and in control and reborn, you're still a temporary visitor, thrust unknowingly into purgatory. Again, to talk about Jesus, he didn't stay resurrected forever. 40 days later, he ascended. Were we not supposed to ascend at the end of our time in Night City? So, other than tenuous and hopelessly muddled bits of religious knowledge, what else points to the fact that V was supposed to be dead, then resurrected, then ascended at the end, giving their body to another soul? Well, this brings me sharply back to the 2 specific things I wanted to talk about. Throughout the game, we are presented with iconography, from the tarot cards to the cat, which happens to be a hairless sphinx. The cat, which should be quite a remarkable thing, seemingly is ignored in this purgatory of concrete, glass and neon. So let's talk about cats to start with. I'll come on to mountains in a minute. Seemingly ignored by most of the people, the all-seeing oracle that is Misty sees them, rightly enough. And even Takamura sees one, instantly referring to it as a Bakaniko, a shape-shifting cat that can be considered a bad omen, but is also and I don't know if this is the right term, but a portent of doom, or a warning to tread carefully that supernatural is afoot. What is more interesting is the fact that, despite his interpretation, I think the developer, CD Projekt Red, clearly chose a sphinx for a reason, and I don't think it's because people working there have cat hair allergies. I think the reason could be that in Egypt, the Sphinx itself served as a guardian or deity, a protector of sacred places. We saw one at our apartment. We saw one at Vic's. These are all safe or sacred places. They're where our family are, their homes, they're where loved ones exist or existed. But it can also be taken to symbolize secrets or hidden knowledge, not unlike the Bakaniko interpretation. And if you think about it, nobody but the select few walking around with us knew the secret we hid of the 2 entities in one being. Much like Songbird, much like Mr. Blue Eyes, and Shodan knows how many more walk Night City's streets. As far as symbolism goes, the cat is a big one, and I think it shines a fairly bright spotlight on V's existence, whether you believe it rightful or not. And speaking of spotlights, let's talk about mountain tops and shafts of light. Mountains are a mainstay of spiritual, religious, and inspirational journeys. In life, we consider ourselves climbing a mountain. The gods in Greek mythos lived at the top of Mount Olympus. Sisyphus is pushing a boulder up a mountain every day, and poor old Prometheus was chained to one to have his guts pecked out for all eternity just for giving us fire. Mountains are big. They are barriers to overcome, summits to mount, and, importantly, close to heaven or the place of the gods in many religions. Stairways in a sense. We see mountains take center stage in Egyptian culture with pyramids, along with other cultures like Mayan, Olmec or Incan. You name it, man-made mountains are of great religious or spiritual significance. So it's no surprise that we are heading to one here, and the game tells us right at the start of the Nomad intro. Check out the sticker here on the back of the car. This should be familiar to anyone who's not only played a game like Journey, but also has completed Cyberpunk 2077. This is unmistakably and intentionally Mikoshi. But in the finest chicken or egg what came first fashion, is it a sticker of Mikoshi or is Mikoshi a representation of the sticker? A sticker used to create Mikoshi. And I'll get onto what I mean shortly. So, why would CDPR put this here? For a gag, an Easter egg, or perhaps to tell us that there is only one true or genuine ending. One that takes us to Mikoshi. One that makes us do the right thing while we're in Mikoshi. However, this vehicle is only from the Nomad start, so does that make the Nomad start the Canon start? Has anybody found this sticker anywhere else? Mikoshi being a pyramid is no accident or coincidence of lazy design, absolutely not. It's quite a strong iconic image. And I want to cycle back to a game I mentioned briefly a minute ago. What I believe is one of the greatest games ever made, Journey by that game company. It's definitely in my top 100 and I've played thousands of games. It probably is in my top 10. Spoiler, if you haven't played it, skip to the next timestamp if you need to, because that is an experience I do not ever want to spoil for anybody. I definitely think Journey is a game that every gamer should try at least once and play it through. It's only about a 2-hour experience, longer if you want to get all the, collectibles and things like that, but for the most part you can get the most important message from the game by just playing it through once. So skip forward if needs be. And while we're waiting for them to skip, if you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you drop me a like and maybe consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this about all kinds of different games. Okay, so it's a beautiful game that has more in common with Cyberpunk 2077 than you might initially realize. Journey is a very literal journey up a mountain, but it's also extremely figurative. It's a representation of life's journey. It tells a story the whole way up. It can be interpreted however you like, really, but for me, this is clearly what it is. A journey of life that faces challenges and gets harder the closer you get to the end, or in this case, the top. It doesn't matter how long your scarf is at the end, you get to the same place and soar through heaven with one full one just like anybody else. In life, if heaven, and I do that in quotes, is to be accepted for this discussion as a given, it doesn't matter how much wealth you accumulate, we all go to the same place if we're good. And this game tells that story, and you can see where all the other people fell on the way. And even more beautiful is the added nature of how it's presented in a cyclical format. When you reach the end, you shoot up as a star. That star falls back at where the game starts, ready for your next journey. The very same star you see when you play the game first time. It's utterly beautiful, and today remains the one game that manages to bring me to tears without fail. What strikes me though about Journey in this case is the iconography. Again, it's a mountain, again with a beam of light shining from it. When you compare it to Mikoshi, it's very similar. The beam of light in Journey is supposed to be an ascent to a heavenly place or whatever afterlife you choose to prescribe to if you do. And when you take it side by side with Mikoshi, whilst not a perfect pyramid, it is very noteworthy. With Mikoshi, you have a beam of light taking you behind the wall. So, although Mikoshi is man-made, could this signify that it is the gateway to a digital heaven, a new kind of man-made creation, albeit one that has, for a time, served as a repository for lost souls, looking not to ascend but up to fall again? But that's not a real thing then, is it? It's a man-made creation. But if humans create AI life, then why not create an AI afterlife? Relic in itself is a man-made analog to reincarnation where you can live forever just like in other religions, and when tired, return to Mikoshi forever. But this is where it twists again, and this is the really interesting part that takes us back to the chicken and the egg again. Is this pyramid just the construct of one digital entity that sees themselves as a god, Alt in this case, plucking an image from your mind, the sticker, and using it as a form of something comprehensible, just like the stage made where Johnny's last moments were met, which again would only work if the Nomad intro is a canon intro, unless it's seen in other places. Is Alt a self-proclaimed or self-idealized digital god presenting you with the light, the gates to her afterlife, beyond the wall where a being can live for digital eternity? Yes, you are dead, and while there may not be a real human afterlife, the game presents you with a digital alternative. Because as far as we know, the situation with V and Johnny is the first of its kind, a brand new opportunity for Alt to usher in a human into a digital realm. Could be quite a power trip. It's a head scratcher, but I just think it matches up really neatly and shows that the deepest meaning of this game is that you are dead already and you are trying to make the right choices as you go on your path to the afterlife. And I don't mean the afterlife, which is essentially like the pantheon of the gods. That's just a bar. I'm talking about the other kind. And it's funny that it should be called the afterlife as well, because it's where legendary dead mercs are immortalized. So another kind of afterlife, another kind of message.
And of course it used to be a morgue, which is a whole other kind of afterlife as well.
So let's just say then, the message is that you're dead and you have to move on and give Johnny your body. And it's alright. You got this extra time to do some good in the world before you move on. A miracle of the glitch in the relic. But you may ask, why is Johnny not the right one to go here? He's an engram too at this point. What gives him priority to your body and not you to be put back onto it? Honestly, that's a great question. Well, you already died. Your digital soul that gets to choose in Mikoshi is already severed from your body. Johnny Silverhand was born an engram in you. He's not the original. No, he's a whole new Johnny Silverhand with inaccurate and incomplete memory snapshots.
His only real and accurate memories having been created since he was born inside of V's body. And again, you choosing to return to your body kills both of you. It's kind of selfish. And it brings us right square back to Ontology, Dexter Deshawn's favorite subject matter. In this case, is your life, which is now a digital life, more valuable than Johnny Silverhand's, which was always a digital life? Whose life is more important, and who's to decide? Oh, it's a tricky one.
There is still that question though, was Mikoshi supposed to look like a pyramid for some god complex riddled Arasaka overlords, or that of a digital goddess? If it was Alt's design, was it intended to be comforting, intended to hold symbology that would connect us to the right choice, as she saw it? Or would it have been hell? My mind says the former. For if it was hell, surely that is where Cerberus would have been, literally under our feet, where rogue AI were trapped and experimented on.
So in conclusion anyway, just to wrap things up, I think the Sphinx that turned up next to our apartment in Act 2 was a nod towards V being a supernatural being, and the pyramid was the ascent to heaven, like an interpretation of the pyramid for most religions. I could talk more about Dante, or I could talk more about Pyramid Song, but yeah, I've got to leave something for the comments.
So, there we go. Is that it? Are we essentially dead when we wake up in the landfill? Are we supposed to go with Alt? Is that what the developers would have hoped people would think was the canon ending, if there was to be one? Were we being manipulated to feel subliminally that Mikoshi, formed either by Saburo or Alt, was a destination rather than something to be avoided? Could just be somebody like the Egyptian themes. At the end of it all, this is just a discussion. Curious to know what you think. Am I reading too much into the visual aspect of Mikoshi, the sticker on the bumper, things like Cerberus? Are we trying to pull something from nothing, or is there some truth to it? What do you think? Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you watching to the end if you have. I hope to see you in a future video. If I have something else interesting I'd like to talk about, then I'll make another video. If there are any topics you'd like me to discuss, let me know in the comments below. And if anything grabs me, I'll see what I can do. All right, take care, folks. Bye.